We'll open a book. I'll go for 5.
What day is it today? We're on the 13th of January.
Friday the
Oh,
13th.
God, you had to say that, didn't you? Don't tempt the whatever from atop the high thing. God. Ooh, okay.
And action.
Oh, well, I was waiting for arse.
You're waiting for us?
I'm always waiting for arse. Right, ready? Hey, Hey everyone, it's Fox from Model Making Guru, and you're watching. It's Friday, the 13th of January 2017, and you're watching the Model Makers Treehouse Club from arse.
Me.
I'd get that scene to if I were you.
No.
It's Friday, the 13th of January 2017, and you're watching the Model Makers Treehouse Club from modelmakingguru.com. Hey everyone, it's Fox from Model Making Guru, and welcome to the first 2017 edition of the Model Makers Treehouse Club, or Boom Hut Club, as we now like to call it. Hope you've all had a good new year and had lots of alcohol. I'm here with my very good friends, and we seem to have a full house for the first time in ever. I know, it's amazing. I don't know how we coordinated that. We shall go through the list, going through no particular order apart from the order that I see them in the bottom. First of all, we have Mr. Ant. How are you, Mr. Ant?
Hello, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm alright. Have a good new year, dude.
Awesome. Yeah. Back to work though now, which sucks, obviously. But
yeah, not a good situation. Look at you with all your models there in the cabinet in the background. Yeah. What have you been up to, dude? How's your time been going?
Modelling in my free time. I've got a few things on the go. Probably seen the X-Wing all over Facebook, the 1144 I did recently, and I've started on another one of those, and a few other bits and bobs.
Yes, that little 144 scale is looking rather sweet. That was kind of cool with the what was it called? It was the
partisan.
That's it.
Livery or scheme. Yeah.
I was thinking Patriarch for some bizarre reason. I don't quite know why. It's the Patriarch X-Wing. I forgot to mention, by the way, because Google Hangouts is apparently going away, we no longer have our little banners on the bottom side, and I'm back to front. Brilliant. So obviously I'm Fox from Model Making Guru, and is from Bashing Kits. Hello, sir.
Hello, Bashing Kits.
Yes, so we won't get our little banner, so we'll have to plug ourselves more often than normal, so sorry about that. Next along the list, we see the top of the head of my very good American friend, who's suddenly woken up. Hello, Mr. Adam from Enigma Model Making. How are you doing, sir?
Doing very good. Sorry, we're playing with pastels.
Ooh, edible or artistic?
Oh yeah.
I've just realised, to my great horror, that I haven't loaded the questions for this week. I can't do anything about that now. Let me get my iPad ready. Do you know I'm such a spoon? Yes. How are you doing, sir? And what have you been up to lately?
Working on the salad bowl.
Oh yes, I can see that in the background. It's rather impressive.
We are not allowed to call it by its name.
You can. You can.
I have been threatened under penalty of being whooped senseless if I bring it up again. So that's why I have it out.
Ew, I heard that rumor.
Because for some reason, people keep asking certain people, when are they going to get started on theirs?
Oh, sigh. I'll answer the question. I'll answer the question now at the start. Yes, I know I haven't done it in months. I will get back to it when I have a much bigger workspace, because it's bigger than my work desk. But how are you finding that big D'Agostini Falcon that I'm not making at the moment?
I mean, I actually had to make a turntable so that I can actually work on the painting and stuff. So,
tell us about this marvel of engineering.
I love it. I mean, so far, I've got pretty much so the cockpit all done up to about your standard where you left off.
Yes, thank you very much.
No worries. And then if you see me working, I'm working on the engine hold. Or the cargo bay.
That's looking most super spiffing, dude.
So, playing with some Tamiya pigments.
Some chimney pigments?
Oh.
I thought it said chimney, like the thing you cook barbecues in. I'm like,
Oh, Tamiya.
oh,
Tamiya.
Tamiya. I forgot to ask you, Ant, do you have your little teeny tiny X-Wing there to show off?
I do.
For those who haven't seen the patriarchal... No, it's not patriarchal.
Yeah, I can try and
Patronista.
talk. Am I on the screen? I can't. I'm not on the big screen. But yeah, there it is.
Wow, that's tiny.
It is tiny. And I put a picture in at the end of it with a 9-volt battery to show how tiny it is. But the hard part was working out the delivery from what little kind of references I could find. But as soon as I saw it, like before the film came out, I thought, yeah, I'd better make one of those. And so I did. And because these are tiny, they don't take, well, I wouldn't say long, but not as long as normal.
Cool. It's looking...
And
Oh, go on, yes.
when it's with its similarly scaled friend, it does look rather good. And you can imagine with a few more, they're going to look even better. So yeah, it's a bit addictive. In fact,
here's another one I made earlier.
This is the current work in progress, the little Pose T70. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the minute. But I can come back to that later if you're kind of bored for now.
No, that's all right. Brilliant. Well, let's move along for another one. I'm just fiddling with my iPad here to try and drastically get the questions up for later on, and I'm such a spoon, I hadn't prepared it all. So next along the line, of course, after Adam and after Ant, we have Mr. Tedward. Skipper Ted from Skipper Scale Models. How are you doing, sir? Hiding away in the corner there. Talk to us and tell us of your new year and your enormous project that we know all about.
Hello, everybody. It's Skipper Ted here. Find me on YouTube. We haven't got the little thing in the corner now, so I'll just put that down there so you can see it. So if you want to add me on your, if you want to subscribe to Skipper Ted, or come and visit me on Skipper Scale Models. Anyway, I'm fine, thank you. I've started the U-boat build in earnest. That's actually what I've got in front of me here.
I like your penny.
This, yeah, it's homemade. Brilliant.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm just having a little bit of a paint crisis at the moment. I've started on the torpedoes and suddenly found out that I haven't got the right colours to do it with. So I'm rooting frantically around my old paint stocks, just trying to find some colours. We'll have a look at them maybe a little bit later on as we go through the evening. Yeah, I've done that. It's been Christmas, so I haven't really done a lot over the Christmas period. I have done that. Can you see it?
I can see a Gumpler. I can see an Exia.
Just a little bit of a sort of a sweetener just to get me back into the build after Christmas. So that went there.
So the important question, Tedward, is how did you find your first Gumpler?
It was easy. I had it done in a couple of hours. Granted, it's not painted or weathered or gump washed or anything like that. It's just straight out of the box. I can see the attraction of them. They do go together really easily, no issues, and these Japanese are damn clever. They've got it all worked out. Yeah, it goes together pretty easily, and it's quite what's the word? Dynamic or not dynamic? It moves about a bit. So
it moves about a bit. Translated straight from the Japanese.
Yeah, that's my first Gumpler. Might be a while before we do another one, but yeah. Right, but that's me. That's what I'm on with. I'll be rustling about in the corner down here while you're all chatting away. And
yes, because for those who haven't watched one of these before, Ted refuses to just hang out and actually cracks on with work because he's the only one of us that's not work shy completely.
somebody's got to set an example. And show
Yeah, it doesn't work though, does it? Because it doesn't rub off on us at all. We just go, yeah.
So I'm rooting through my paint, trying to find some colours. Otherwise, it'll be a trip down to the model shop or a posted or a mail to e-models to buy some more stuff.
Yeah. And of course, all your boxes are sealed with the loudest possible tape in the world. Brilliant. Well, let's move on to the next one. Next along after Ted, who's gone freeze frame. I think he lagged there a second. Next along from Ted, we have, of course, my very good friend TK from TK's Models over in the Netherlands. TK, how the devil are you, my friend, and what are you working on at the moment?
Hey, I'm fine, really. Been busy with the lair all around me, which has now been finished for 89%. And I've done some actual modeling again. So I've been airbrushing parts you might recognize, Foxx.
I recognise parts of a Freedom Gundam anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your new man cave is now complete and all built and everything.
Yes. I've spilled paint already, so it's
Yay!
It's all good now.
It's not just me.
No, it's not just you, Tony. So you've christened it with spillage.
Yes.
Ooh, cool. And now for the if you've get my words out.
Hello.
You did. Hello, morning. You did post up a video. I think I shared it on my page. I don't know if anybody else did. I shared onto for my followers a little tour of your Magic Workspace with a very sad little start, a little tearjerker bit at the start.
Yeah, that was intentional. Just a little joke because I moved up in. Well, literally, I moved to the attic.
Well, it took a few minutes because I watched it and I thought, wow, this is a really bad choice of music. It's really sad. And then after a few seconds, I thought, oh, I get it. I get what you're doing.
Yeah. I was thinking about doing that for a long time. So it's dramatic, the F-16, just grab it off the old bench, and closing the door, turning off the lights, stuff like that. It's intentional. I mean.
And now that's the universal junk room then.
And no, my wife's gonna move in there with her hobby stuff. So, yeah, universal junk room basically.
don't ever show Mrs. TK that bit, and you'll be fine. There's no problems at all.
She never watches this anyway, so I'm safe.
Yeah, unless she watches it.
She's not around the corner, so.
Okay.
Good, I hope.
Well, hopefully not, because when you open up that little secret panel on the other side that's got all the the beer fridge and stuff in, you'll be given away. So, here's hoping.
Don't tell anyone. It's a secret hatch for a reason.
Oh, is that what? I wonder why you put the word secret on the front. Yeah, but nobody. It's right. It's not like we're on the internet or anything. Or, maybe.
I shouldn't probably have arrows pointing to it. So.
Yeah, little lights, little neon arrows.
Yeah. Glow in the dark.
Jolly glow in the dark, especially when after several beers that might not help. And we have a little story about after our last podcast, which we'll get into in the after hours maybe.
Yeah.
Somebody had too much to drink, I believe, but we'll move on from that one. Next along from TK, once in a blue moon we managed to get Tony from Helgen35 on here, and he's got his close-up cam, close-up sports cam. Yes. How are we doing, sports fans? How are you, sir? How was your Christmas and New Year? And how are you diddling? And what are you on? And what are you on is a good question, actually. But there you go.
Some other pub. Can we say that?
Yeah, why not?
I'm not too sure if I'm working still because I can still see you.
Yeah, you're still working. We can hear you and see you.
Brilliant. Thank you. It's just been busy, worky, and all that kind of nonsense still. We've had the bad news that we've lost Indy now, my beloved Labrador. So that was a bit of a downer for New Year, but we're grateful that she was in our lives for a while, onwards and upwards and all that kind of stuff, and it's just work, but I am nibbling away. Hopefully I should be able to have the final episode of Boba Fett up this week, finally.
Yes,
I've only been trying to do it since that final episode's taken 3 months so far.
Was it 1987 or something, 88 when you started doing it?
Something like that. Yeah, easy, really is. But yeah, apart from that, it's just work. I can't actually get a decent run at the table to carry on doing the things we're doing.
The frustration. The frustration. Yes, it was sad news to hear about Indy. We're all kind of sad for that, and she's in a better place now.
Yeah.
She's in a very good place now. Constant.
Cheers.
There's lots of dog biscuits.
Yes.
Yeah. Aww. So I know you're of all of us. You probably have the toughest schedule because of your job and because of everything else. So
Yeah. I can't say that word, can I?
not yet.
Not yet.
Second half, not the first half.
I caught myself.
Yeah, people have got to pay to hear you swear.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean you have the tightest schedule of all of us, and I know you were. Hopefully you would have been back to a normal work schedule by now, but that's all gone base over Apex
Yeah.
with your
Yeah,
employer. Not forever,
Again.
just for a bit.
Not forever.
Just for a bit.
Couple of months of more graft, and we should be clear then.
Yeah, then you can get
He says.
cracking on all those mini kits in your pile of shame. What do you think's? Because
Yeah.
I know. Obviously, you've got the Boba Fett. I just said Boba Fett, didn't I? Boba Fett. I went all American.
Bobby.
You've got the booby feet.
Boo boo. Yes.
And I know there's a Gundam you're working on, but you're not showing that yet, so I won't say anything. What's next then? Do you think in the many months from now when you've sorted out all the scheduling?
I am doing another one for e-models very soon.
Ooh, have we
Which
just?
is the Mark 10 by Takum.
Is that a tank by any
I
chance?
can't wait for that one. Yes. It's in the. Ted will know it. It's the very cool Berlin colour scheme where it's all like painted in squares and things like that, and every tank was painted that exact same scheme rather than the randomness that you normally get.
Yeah, the Chieftain tank.
And that's the one. That's the one.
Lovely model.
I can't wait to see it.
What scale? What scale? You on 135th or?
135th, yeah.
Nice.
I've got the Takum's King Tiger image stash now that I was very, very lucky to get at Christmas. Just going off the detail on that, it's beautiful. It even beats Tamiya and Bandai's level of detail.
I have to admit, I mean, it's only in the last couple of years I've even become aware of Takom as a manufacturer, because I've never been a big armour guy, so AFV guy.
Yeah.
So, are they? How old are Tak? Are they like fairly new, like 3 or 4
Fairly
years?
recent, yeah. It's only like at least 3 years that I know of. It's possibly slightly longer than that. It's more than likely about 5.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, the detail in that kit. It's like the instructions as well. Come off the. Oh, they've all come off AutoCAD.
Ted's doing his free advertising again.
Very subtly.
Yeah.
As if I would.
He just very gently moves it, but just make sure he bangs something to get the screen to switch over. Clunk. Oh, was that me? Bless you, Ted. Bless you, Ted. Lovely. Well, let's move on to by no means least, and obviously last, but by no means least, and more flightless than all of us. Adorably flightless, even though he hasn't got any flying goggles on. Will from Models by Will over in New Zealand land. Almost upside down land. How are you doing, Will? How are you? How was your new year? And what have you been up to?
Yeah, not too bad. Excuse my quality, by the way. I'm having to keep on dropping my bandwidth down because I'm getting a lot of interference, but I'll just adjust it up. So it's...
Are you downloading porn again? Is that what it is?
Family friendly.
Don't tell everyone.
Well, this is family. I've not sworn. It's not a swear word.
No, very good. New Year's, Christmas quiet. So I've been working on the bathroom and everything, but I managed to tidy my room. See behind me? Finally, well, you can't see the bench, but the bench is tidy as well. But that shelf is just a total mess. Oh, and I've got to, turn on the light. Changes colour.
Ooh.
Hang on, nobody saw that. Nobody saw that because you went quiet then. So.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, okay, change. Yeah. So tidied the bench because I want to get back into doing some kits, and I'm starting with the snow speeder. You use that to get into weathering. I did say I was going to do the X-wing or the Y-wing, but I decided I'm going to do that. And I recorded a video on that this morning too, so that'll be up okay, or tomorrow, sort of thing. So I am actually doing something.
Cool. Snow speeder is a good kit. I really wish somebody did a bigger than 1/48 scale snow speeder at some point. Because 1/48 is cool, but it's only like that big. I did the fine molds one. It's a really nice little kit, but
Drop your back.
you really want 1/24, don't you? Really? Or...
Yeah, it's a good sized kit though. It's like you say, it is a nice kit. And I've watched Ant's video on it, and very well done by the way, Ant. And yeah, it is a really good model detail on there, which all of the Bandai Star Wars kits have got awesome amounts of detail on it, and as we all know. But no, I'm looking forward to getting that one. I got to get some prime. I got to get some paint for it, and some sort of weathering products, so I can finally jump into the whole weathering thing.
Cool. You are having some bandwidth issues there, aren't you?
Yeah, I've had to drop it right down low. So I've gone all like just because. Sorry. All pixelated because if I put it up any higher, I just get dropout from everyone else, so I can't hear what anyone's saying.
You must have a movie downloading or something going on in the background.
So I've shut everything else down, so I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, what's the missus downloading that you don't know about?
What's happening? Yeah. Anyway, that's
cool.
me.
Yep, cool. Brilliant. Okay, so we're all doing bits. Me, for myself, I've done basically bugger all for the last few weeks. I've just been busy with family stuff and loads of other bits and bobs. I'd do my tax return. So that was shut up, you. So that was fun.
Yeah.
So I've not really had a lot of time to do filming or building or anything. I have done some little bits. I've not started filming yet, but I did start doing some detail painting on the Perfect Grade Zaku, which won't come out on camera, but I've painted some. Ted, you've been a right disruptive element tonight, you know that, don't you?
Sorry. I'll mute my mic while I move around.
More rattle than a smoker's lung. I don't know. So I've painted some little sort of bronzy details and some silvery parts on the legs there. Wow, this camera's jumping from everybody tonight. So some little details. I've done some little bits on pistons and things like that. There's a little gold and silver piston bit there. And some bits on the hand, but you can't really see them. I have just taken... The reason I was dawdling with filming for that partially is because I was waiting for a delivery from Mig Jimenez. They've now sent me some oil brushes. So I have some oil brushes. I have what have I got? Olive green. I have dark green. I have field green. I have rust, and I have some Starship filth. Starship filth. The only existing Starship. Hey.
Is it called Starship filth?
It certainly is, just to add to all the confusion as to the rules of Starship filth. So, just to make everybody aware, who doesn't maybe already know, tubes of oil paint Starship filth no longer exist. You can't get it new. There might be some floating around in online stores. You can't buy it. So the fact that all my videos talk about Starship filth, yeah, it's a bit of a bugger. But Mig now do the oil brushes in Starship filth. So, I'm going to be trying something with that. I was waiting for that so I can do the panel lining and washing on the interior frame, because I can't just do a wash because that's going to screw the plastic up. So I have some plans for that. A plan to how to use the oil brush of Starship filth, even though it's not thick enough to do a gunk wash. I'm going to have an experiment, see if I can do a gunk wash with an oil brusher. So it will be revealed. So I'm going to
Does this mean I'm sitting on a gold mine with 3 tubes of Starship filth?
Yeah, it means keep them for a long time.
I'll put them back away, shall I?
Well, I would say they're worth something apart from the fact that you can now just use Mig Abteilung Smoke, which is exactly the same as Starship filth.
Got mine. Engine grease. I got my engine grease and my Starship filth.
Yeah.
So is it just the Starship filth that's gone now? All the other still there? I mean, I've never got any other colours, but all the colours are still around.
Well, the confusing story is more confusing. Starship filth as an oil paint, a neat oil paint, doesn't seem to exist anymore. However, Mig do bitumen or bitume, and they also do smoke, which is basically Starship filth. So I'm wondering if they had to change the name from Starship filth because Ammo were coming out with their Starship filth, and maybe they own the name.
That's the rumour I've heard.
Yeah.
What they've also done is the Gundam Red and Gundam Blue have now changed to Brick Red and something else blue. I can't remember quite what that one is.
Because Gundam's a copyrighted name. Yeah. So basically, Starship filth does exist as oil paint. It's just it's called smoke.
Yeah.
So, but I've got enough tubes. Apparently, I sit on all the tubes in the world, so I'm never going to have to buy any more anyway. So that's what I've been up to. So I've been up to.
When you mentioned it, that's why I got like 3 tubes. When you mentioned it last time, I was like, ooh.
Yeah, but you can't use it now because if nobody else can get it, what's the point in mentioning it?
I can say it's now smoke. Or you can make it.
It's called smoke when you use it on
smoke rather than Starship filth.
Yeah, just call it smoke instead, except it says Starship Filth on my tube, so...
Yep.
I'm a purist, I have to go off what's on the bottle lid. Yeah. But that's, I mean, other than that, I've not really done much building for the last, well, since just before Christmas, because of family and everything else. I did make the horrendous mistake of getting stuck in a load of TV marathons. I started watching, and watched in its entirety, Battleship Yamato 2199, Space Battleship Yamato 2199, which is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant anime. Not the original, because that looks like ass, but the new modern version, the 2199, which I got hooked on within the first episode and watched the whole thing, and now I've bought the model kit, and I've had the theme tune stuck in my head. Theme tune stuck in my head for like 4 weeks, and I really can't get it. It's the worst earworm ever. I can't get it out of my head.
Is it worse than the original Gundam?
Yep.
Mobile suit.
Yep. Far worse. It got to the point where I had to go onto YouTube and look for every video I could find of a band or orchestra performing the theme tune just to get different versions in my head in the hope it might dislodge it. But then I accidentally downloaded the whole soundtrack, and it's just so I've had the not so much the theme tune, but there's one called Pioneering Yamato Theme, which is like a stretched version of the theme tune. It's been in my head for 4 weeks and I can't get it out, and I'm losing sleep because it won't go away. So yeah. And then I started watching The West Wing, which I've never seen, and I'm stuck on that. So yeah.
Watch Vikings.
No.
Yes.
I will do it at some point. Well, I started my friend told me to watch The West Wing, and I started that, and now I've been marathoning that. So I need to stop marathoning TV shows and get on with some model making, which will be a good idea. So that's me. So brilliant. So yes, welcome everybody. That's the introductions out the way. It's
longest introductions we've ever had.
Well, I kind of rolled in. I kind of flummoxed myself by not having realised I've not prepared the comments. Now it's all gone to pot, so I'm all just flustered now. So I kind of folded all what we're doing as well. So anyway, so yes, it's 2017. It's a new year. I've made no New Year's resolutions. I assume you guys haven't either, because it's kind of a wimpy thing to do, really. Will's kind of muted himself. He's like, what? What have I done? Oh, did you press a button?
I'm trying to figure out what's going on with my bandwidth, because I've got it right down on low, and everyone just keeps dropping out. So I don't know what's going on with my computer. But
have you run a speed
well.
test thing or something to see if you've got particularly slow broadband? Maybe you should reboot your router or something.
Yeah, maybe it's it. I've got a wired connection now, because I've got one of those power line thingies that Ted was talking about one time. So I've got we've got fiber broadband now, so it's super fast. But it just, I don't know, it keeps on dropping out, but I don't know why.
Run a speed test
in the background. But
just run a speed test and see if you're getting 36k a second or something. So anyway, yes. So that's the introductions and all that nonsense out of the way. Let's crack on to the news. I have none at all that I've thought of. No interesting news of any kind, model making or otherwise, because I've been shut away watching marathoning TV series. Not really seen the news. What have you guys picked up over the last few weeks since we last spoke? Any interesting stories? Anything's happening? I know there is one story that some of you are about to talk about, and I've actually forgotten exactly what it was. Oh, primers. There we go. That's what it was. Over to everybody else. Over to Ted on the traffic desk.
I think being Christmas, there hasn't been any news as such, because everybody's just been away getting drunk and eating chocolate and turkey. That's the way it's gone so quiet. But yeah, I haven't picked anything up.
No, I mean,
there was a discussion between us all a short time ago about primers and the use of primers. People were asking it's an age-old question of what's the best primer, and it's how long's a piece of string, really.
Yeah. Now I know there has been one little thing we have realised amongst ourselves is that, and I'll let some others of you speak of this because I only found this out today from you guys, but Ammo have a new primer called One Shot Primer. They've got their normal primer, which is the one I've used before, which is just the Ammo primer. But I suddenly recently was made aware by one of you guys they've got a new primer. When they sent me those old brushes, I asked them to send me a sticker so I can put it on my desk so I can show off their logo. And they sent me a tiny little pin, which is no use, and like 500 sheets of products, which they always send me anyway. So I've got thousands of sheets of Ammo brochures. And they had on there the one-shot primer, which I'd never seen. Now, one of you told me today that it's basically the Steinau res, so that means you've got UMP, Steinau res, and ammo, all with the same primer. Who's got that story? One of you guys.
Yeah, they sent me one of those newsletter things about 2 months ago now, saying they were bringing it out, and the first thing I spotted was the shape of the bottle. It's exactly the same as Steinau res, and it's 17 different forms at the moment. That's not 17. There's Steinau res itself from Badger, which is the version I've got. And then UMP brought theirs out, and it's the exact same bottle, shape, and now the MiG have done it as well. Ammo for MiG. From what I can tell, from everything they sent me, it's Steinau res.
Well, MiGs do say that it is the product that they're selling is Badger. It's been bought from them, and they openly admit it's Badger. It's not obviously not their own. So yeah, same stuff, but it's brilliant. I've used it on this part of the U-boat. I sprayed it the other night. It's fantastic stuff. It just lays down brilliantly, and it's idiot proof.
A one-shot primer.
Hence the name, yeah. Because that's the thing I found about using the UMP stuff, which is the Badger Steinau res and obviously the ammo as well, is that you can just slap it on. You just go, and you don't think about it. You don't have to do a mist coat for. Just slap it on, overcoat it. It doesn't really run, and when it dries, it just dries so smooth. Yeah. Like Ted says, it's just idiot proof. It's on. There you go, done, no problem. And I, for one, fully support any product that means I can turn my brain off while I'm trying to get rid of the goddamn Yamato theme out of my head and just prime without thinking.
Whereas the MiG primer, if anybody's thinking of MiG primer, once again, it's brilliant stuff. It just takes a little bit of practice to apply it properly. You need to, it's not one shot. You need to apply it in, first of all, a mist coat, and then sort of very light coats after that, and just build it up. So firstly, it doesn't delete all your detail, and it doesn't start to run and peel. If it goes on too thick, that's what it's going to do.
But that's kind of good, because there's people that can't get hold of UMP stuff because they're in the UK and the person buying it might be out elsewhere, or can't get hold of the Badger stuff because they're not in the US or some parts of Europe. So if a lot of places now...
that's the problem down here. We're very limited to what we can get down here. I mean, we don't get the Badger or the UMP at all. We can order it online, but of course then the shipping cost is astronomical. We can easily get Tamiya, like everyone can. I think we can get the Humbrol primers, but I've never used them. But I wanted to go acrylic, so I thought I'll grab some Vallejo stuff. I used the black Vallejo stuff on my Deep Space Nine, and that worked fine, and I since grabbed some grey stuff. But then when you guys were talking about the UMP, I was like, we've got to get some of that. And then when I saw the that new MiG one-shot primer coming up on one of our local sites, I'm like, okay, I want to try that stuff. And that's why I was asking people if anyone had used it or anything, because I couldn't find any reviews on it or anything. But yeah, it's good news that it is the UMP stuff, because that means it'll be brilliant to use for me. Definitely going to get me some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's worth...
Use it on my snow speeder.
Yeah, because it's definitely worth checking it out. Like I say, it's so forgiving. A lot of people do ask me about Vallejo primers. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point, I have tried using a Vallejo primer, but I'd rather eat my own face. If anybody ever asks me, should I use a Vallejo primer, I say, have you ever used a primer before? No. Then don't use a Vallejo primer. Never had anything but hassle from a Vallejo primer. I think, Will, you were saying you've used them before, haven't you? Was it you saying you've used... Oh, no, it's there we go. There's Ted.
Black one.
Is this what you were talking
on
about?
Deep Space Nine, and I never had any problems with it.
Yeah, Adam's got it there on screen. Have you had any problems with it, Adam, or you find it all right?
I hate it. I hate it with a passion, and I'm glad you said something, because I was chalking it up to idiot operator with an airbrush.
Well, there is that as well, but no.
Was too high or something.
No, I mean,
it will clog up an airbrush faster than anything. So, truthfully, I still use the Tamiya, whatever the hell we're calling it. Excuse me. Spray can, rattle can. And I have
Tedward, what are you doing?
Sorry.
so not sorry.
I think you have to make sure that microphone's like not on the desk, Ted, because it picks up all the noises, all the vibrations.
I got both UMP and Vallejo, and I did a side-by-side test, which I didn't film because I forgot. I'm used to the Vallejo stuff. The UMP stuff or the Badger stuff goes down more easy, but in the end, it's the same result as the Vallejo stuff. If you know how to use it, both are fine. Both do the job. This is a little easier to learn how to prime with, I think.
I think that's the main issue with the Vallejo stuff is you can get good results with it, but if you don't do it exactly right, you're just going to get rubbish. And I think it's the barrier to entry. I think is the problem.
The Vallejo stuff does need at least 24 hours to dry to cure before it. If you don't, you get peeling. I never had, but you probably get peeling. You can peel it off any surface. So, and I don't usually clean my plastic before I start priming. So there's all my finger hand jam or whatever you call it.
Hand jam.
On it, and I just rub it with a dry piece of kitchen roll, and then start spraying.
Have you ever had issues with it, like when you're sanding it coming up? Because a lot of people say because it's a polyurethane primer. I know the other stuff is as well. When they're sanding it, it's just coming off. It's not. But I don't know if I suspect that's maybe they've not left it to cure long enough or something like that.
No, I leave it for a couple of days, so I haven't had that problem.
But they've got a
Like they just nonchalantly added that back onto the clipboard there, TK.
Yeah, it fell off.
Casually.
I'm trying to
Sit
stay
on
off of it.
And if Ted can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, of course you can. Ted, Ted, what's your primer of preference at the moment? Because I know you've used a number of different things, but
Yeah, well, I got the MIG primer, and that worked brilliant. It's fine. Then I went to Telford and I picked up some of the UMP primer, and at the moment I'm using that one because it's just, as I say, it's idiot proof, and usually 1 or 2 coats, and it's done rather than a mist coat wait till it dries like the MIG stuff. But at the moment, excuse me, it's.
what were you on before that? Then going back, months and months. What was your go-to primer?
Yeah, I think it was Vallejo, and prior to that it was Humbrol, and prior to that, it was Humbrol. Then I went on to Halford's grey car primer, plastic primer. I think everybody's gone that route.
Yeah.
But now,
we've all slummed it at Halfords every now and then.
Yeah. Now Halfords see less and less of me as I go for the model-specific primers.
Ooh. I just going off the subject of primers, and just because someone mentioned lacquers, and now we're talking about rattle cans, I learned something today, well, yesterday actually, that I kind of knew but I'd never thought about. What was I watching? I was watching somebody paint something. It's really useful, I know. It was a person with the face and the hands and the painting and the... Anyway, I think they're painting a Millennium Falcon, and I apologise if it's, whoever it was that was doing it, I've forgotten, because I watched about 1 billion videos, including The West Wing and everything else. They were painting them... Oh, no, it was Steve Dimzo, the guy who worked on the D'Agostini Falcon, which I've now mentioned again, sorry me. He's got a 5-part guide as to how to paint the Millennium Falcon to look like the studio miniature. And he said something which I've heard of before, and I knew anyway, but it never clicked, is that he painted it with Tamiya rattle cans. He used AS20, which is insignia white. And I've used that before as well. And I think I used AS16, which is, I think, flag white for the Millennium Falcon. But he said, basically, and I kind of knew this in the back of my mind, that the Tamiya rattle cans, the AS colours, are basically lacquers. But they're not going to melt through your plastic, but they're basically lacquers. So he painted this whole thing with Tamiya AS20. It was a really nice colour. And then he started doing all his pin washes and weathering on top. And he said, don't worry, I think he was using enamels, he was using acrylics that you could thin with lacquer thinners perhaps. But anyway, he was spraying on some paints, and he said, I've screwed up this acrylic paint, no problem, I'll get some thinner. wiped it off. And he said it's because it's a lacquer base, because the colour underneath is lacquer, of course, you can easily put thinners on there from enamels and acrylics, and it's not going to affect the lacquer paint. And I thought, I kind of knew that, but I'd never twigged. So I was sitting there thinking about you, Adam, with your big Agostini Falcon, thinking, you know, you could have just rattle canned it and got away with it, and it may have made your life easier.
For mine, I just, again, going back to your videos, and I cheated. I actually made up a bunch of it because I'm going to need a ton of it. The 4-to-1 of the deck tan and flat white. And to me, I can definitely, like the spare cockpit, I like that color.
Yeah. But I was more amazed that I'd completely never thought about the fact that if I paint it with the lacquer colour first, which it kind of unofficially is in those rattle cans, if I screw it with an acrylic, I can just thinner it off dead easily because it's on top of a lacquer.
Yeah.
Whereas if I painted it with an acrylic first and then I airbrushed some enamels over the top, it probably wouldn't come off as easily, or you'd knacker the enamels, the acrylics underneath. It was kind of a lot more of an interesting story in my head. I'll shut up now because it really went nowhere and had no point, did it?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, there was no car chase. How about you, Ant? What about you and primers? I know you've been using the UMP stuff before, but what?
I have. And it's Tony's fault. Yeah, there he is. I got some of the Steinor res when he was on about it because I had a nightmare with Vallejo because I was using rattle cans, no problem, Humbrol and Tamiya, damn it. But they're quite costly and you go through them pretty quick and you can't do them indoors, or I can't anyway. So I tried Vallejo and had a nightmare with it. But that was, I think, to do with more my just airbrushing nightmares anyway, of always needing to thin everything. I don't know why, but I have to thin my primers as well, or else I get the spitting and the spatters. But aside from that, yeah. So I tend to make up a cup of primer and then pour it into my airbrush, so that I've got the right thickness then, or thinness.
I think there's a lot. I think a lot of it is there's a lot of like fear and myth about primers, and basically, a lot of people I think overthink it. It's basically it protects your plastic, it gives your paint something to grip to. Done.
I was watching a.
Think of it no more complex than that. And... Go on, sorry.
You see those Revolt kits that he was making over Christmas? He didn't bother primering those. He just airbrushed straight onto them. They look fine. I don't know. It's because they were Tamiya paints and because they're a bit more enduring, I suppose. I'm not sure.
I mean, well, to me, acrylics are technically a bit more like lacquers than acrylics. They might have some grip. I think that's why he sometimes uses without primers, purely because the acrylics, the Tamiya acrylics, which are actually lacquers, may have a bit more bite to them. But I mean, certainly, if I was making something, I know he does do that, and you don't have to primer. I think if it's a static display model, it's not the end of the world because it's never going to get handled. I think if you're making, say, a Gunpla, you probably want to, you will want to primer it because you're going to be handling it and building it and assembling it, and it's all going to come off.
Another thing about primers as well is that some folks say they don't need to prime, or they don't prime, or why should we prime? It's just a waste of money. But if you've got a multimedia model, you've got photo etch, resin, plastic, all going onto one model. A coat of primer will even the colours up. So when you put your base coat on, it'll give you an even base coat. Otherwise, you'll have different colours on each different media.
Yeah,
and if you're sanding as well, obviously you're going to see where you need to carry on sanding.
Yeah,
and you want to do it before you put paint on, obviously. So yeah, that's the other reason. Yeah.
That's the important thing that Ted mentions that a lot of people don't realise is that when you're painting a colour, you have to pay attention to the colour that's underneath it. So if you spray red on top of a white primer, it'll look nice and bright. If you spray it on top of a black primer, it's going to look darker and duller because no paint is completely opaque. It's always going to have some translucency. So again, yeah, if you've got different coloured plastic parts, then it's going to even it all out for you. And the other thing, of course, with the primer is if it's a dark colour like a black or something, then you can do pre-shading with it without having to pre-shade individual lines. You can just paint the whole piece. There you go. How did we get started on primers? I don't remember this part of the conversation, actually.
News.
Yeah, go on, that'll do. Well, let's move on from primers then. Anything else that people have been picking up on over the last few weeks? I say I have absolutely nothing whatsoever. I've been marathoning, so... And the problem is, I marathon a TV series, and then when I've finished it, it all just goes.
Going back to that marathon TV series and binging on Battleship Yamato, did you maybe have a drunken purchase one night? Or
Yeah. It wasn't a drunken purchase, but yes, I did end up buying the 1/500th Yamato kit. I posted a video up showing it. It's huge, man. I've got it. I can see it above my screen now. I've got this shelf above my screen here, where my stash lives, and it's as wide as the whole shelf. And it's 1/500 scale. It's basically like a giant high grade because it's not too complex. So, and I really want to get on.
Calling to you, going, build me.
Yeah.
Build me.
As are all the other ones in my stash, but I've got so much else to do in the meantime that it's going to be months before I get around to it. Who's texting me?
It's me. Sorry, guys, I've got to go.
All right, dude. Well, thank you for popping in briefly. We'll catch you for the next.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right, you were. We'll catch you for the next one, Spud.
Take it easy.
See.
Bye,
Love you all.
Bye.
Remember, folks, if you want to go and see Tony's stuff, go and visit him on YouTube at Helgan35, HELGAN35. Also, don't forget, of course, if you have any complaints about this podcast or any content, please email helgan35@geocities.com. He will take all our complaints. So my Yamato, Urun Senkan Yamato. It's going to be months before I get to that. I've got to do the bear guy, I've got to do the transit van, I've got to finish this Zaku. And I'll be honest and admit that my mojo has been kind of really low for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know why. It's just been, I've been looking at the workbench going, I think it's because I'm where I am on the Zaku, and because it's restricting me with what I can do on the inner frame. Because I hadn't figured out, I would normally do a gunk wash, but of course I can't use oil paints because they're not ammo, they're not MIG's oil paints. So I've been stuck for a solution, and I didn't want to use anything that was going to damage the plastic or get into the joints and eat things away. So, but now I've got these oil brushes, that might be a bit of a solution that I can work around. So that's going to get me getting back on with that.
But also, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I hate to say this about Gundams because you and I and Ann and Will and a couple others love building them.
Yeah, I'm me. Look, I built one.
Yeah. I mean, it does get to a point where you're building one, whether it's a high grade or a perfect grade, you sort of reach, what is it that we termed it, the weapon stage?
Weapon fatigue.
Weapons fatigue. You get to that point, you worked so hard on the inner frame, you've worked so hard on the armor, and then it's like all of a sudden you get to the weapons and you're like, oh man, now I got to do this. And when you're
especially when you're doing things like filling seams as well, because you've focused on the mobile suit first. Yeah. Yeah,
and I mean, especially when you're doing what you term the skill level 5 builds, where you're doing the inner frames and everything, you do build up a fatigue.
Man, look at the size of that Falcon. It's just obscene.
No. I got this monstrosity I've been working on for a few months.
Well, that's beautiful, dude.
And it's just, now it's gotten to the point where I need to get in there and start weathering it, and it's like, oh, okay, it looks pretty on my shelf right now.
Yeah, you do get to that point. And I think as well, let's not forget with Gunpla as well, there's the whole issue about, which I found out recently, the whole issue with the weak plastic that Bandai uses because they don't bake the plastic. Apparently, that's why it's so susceptible to thinners. And it does pose a lot of problems. And especially on this Zaku build, where right now, because it's a build obviously for MIG, I'm just using MIG's products, which are all, there's a lot of enamels in there and things, so I've got to be super careful. So, and even if I wasn't just using ammo paints, I'd be cautious of using other things like thinned paint washes. So a lot of it is, Gunpla is freedom unless you want to do some weathering on it, in which case Gunpla is a bit restricting. So I am looking forward to getting on with that transit, because that's proper just old school. It's baked plastic. I can just put anything on it. So I'm really looking forward to getting on with that one at some point.
A question about weathering the products. Does anyone know, is that the Vallejo washers, are they acrylic or are they enamel? Because I've seen them and I can get them, but I don't know what are they.
I'm not sure. I think some of them are enamel, because I think like with AK as well, some of them are very similar. But
they're water-based acrylic.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking of the AK ones, aren't I? Sorry.
But I've tried to use them and I'm not really liking them. They dried really quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm thinking about weathering products and what I can get a hold of. I think I've got some AK stuff. But yeah, it's like it's a matter of what I can get a hold of, and
I know one
say
of
the
the things
bundle
I
plastic isn't that great. So
one of the things I use, Will, is Citadel paints.
oh yep, yeah, I can get
And
those over here.
yeah, like with this
Yeah, I've got some of those. Woo! There we go.
skull that I worked on, that was just a process of playing with paint. I did all that blackening and darkening between the teeth with that, and it just doing several pen washes, just getting it in there and letting it dry, then doing another coat and building up to where you can actually see the distinguish.
If I remember rightly, they are actually water-based, aren't they? And they are very, very translucent, so you can. If one coat, you probably won't see it. Because I've used them on a few things, purely because they're not going to do much harm to a gumpler. So
The
yeah,
downside to Citadel, or to me, the downside is cost. They're expensive.
yeah, and they're more expensive for you because you're in the US. So I can just wander down the street to the Games Workshop, but they're still not exactly cheap. And then
Because we've got Games Workshop over here as well, so I can do the same thing. Although we only got one store in Auckland now, I think.
well, I think,
But still, I can go there and get a hold of some here.
well, my local is actually a Warhammer shop. But the only downside, and they're lovely guys in there, don't get me wrong, they are lovely guys in there. The only problem is you walk in to buy a brush, and they're like, oh, you want to buy a brush? Come and look at these big expensive models over on this side. I'm like, yeah. They kind of gently usher you to the expensive shelf in a very polite way, and you're like, oh, I feel guilty if I don't buy this £5,000. I just want a brush, dude. I just want a brush.
Yeah, the other thing I do is I just make my own washes, in the sense of, like, when I'm starting to run low on the Tamiya rubber black, the XF55, I believe it is. When I'm starting to run low, I just put a ton of alcohol in it, and it makes a pretty decent wash.
Well, that's what I would traditionally do, because one thing I will be doing on the transit van, and one thing I'll do on any non-Bandai kits, you'll see me do, is a smoke wash, Tamiya smoke, thinned down as a wash. I did that on my Millennium Falcon, just covered the whole thing in this really thin Tamiya wash. But of course you can't do it on a gumpler because you're thinning it with thinners or alcohol, so it's going to potentially damage the plastic. So yeah, but on normal models, I was amazed to watching that Steve Nimzo's video again. He was saying that when they made the filming miniature for the Falcon, they used Tamiya smoke, and I'm like, I didn't even know it was around in the 70s. But that's brilliant, because I've always used Tamiya smoke apart from when I was doing gumpler. Tamiya smoke's like a brilliant, like, griming and dirtying up colour. So I was like, cool, I made a right decision without anybody telling me many years ago. I'm wobbling my chair again, aren't I?
Can we do a quick break? Because I really need to...
Yes, I need to go and have a bathroom break. Right, we'll go and take a quick relief break, bathroom break. We shall be back in just one moment. So here are some local scenes and some interesting music.
Do, 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 do.
Okay, and we are back. Apologies for the quick break. Right, we're back now. We've waffled for almost an hour, so we'll get on to the questions. The questions and answered. I put a thing on the Facebook page saying, hey, give us your questions. So we have some questions. Let's have a look and see what questions we have. Okay. Quick question from Jacek Lewandowski. I got it wrong the last time. I probably got it wrong again this time, so my apologies, Jacek. Any tips for brush painting large surfaces with Tamiya paints? Have you voted... oh, that's a political one. I won't ask that one. So any tips for brush painting Tamiya paints on large surfaces? I'll start by saying try not to. Brush...
Don't.
Yeah, Tamiya paints are... The makeup of Tamiya paints is such they have a lot of matting and flattening agents in them, and they can make the paint quite thick and dry out quite quickly, so you have to thin them quite a lot. You can get good results, and when I was a kid I used to make models all the time and paint them by brush with Tamiya paints because that's all I had. But as long as you thin them a bit and you try not to, well, yeah, just don't, basically. It's my answer. Thin them and use a big brush and go lightly if you have to.
Yeah, you'll find with Tamiya paints that, especially brush painting, if you do a thin coat and then you don't really leave it long enough to harden off, it will just lift again by the time you come to put the second coat on. It'll just lift straight off. So I wouldn't bother. Use a rattle can or use an airbrush if you've got one.
Yeah, if you can use a rattle can, use it outdoors. Obviously, you need decent weather. But like Ted says, if you need to brush paint it, then do try and leave a good few hours, at least 24 hours if you can, between coats. Because if you run a paintbrush over it, you'll see the paint balling up on the bristles, and that's because it's picking up the old layer of paint. So ideally, if you can, don't brush paint with Tamiya's. They're not perfect. Vallejo paints are better for brush painting. AK paints, I've not really used them much for big brush painting big areas. But if it's a big area, then yeah, if you can take it outside and rattle can it, because Tamiya rattle cans are really good. They're more like lacquers, as we said before, but they are really, really good paints. Anybody else got any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, working on this Falcon build, if you look on the screen, I got the webcam like in the corridor. Those pads are brush painted, and if you look real close, you'll see streaking in it. And I mean, yeah, it adds to some of the effect and weathering that I've been doing, but that's the problem I have with the Tamiya paints is it streaks real bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably still what you call a small area, and that you could, if you thinned it down a bit and did it within a few coats, you probably could get a nice flat finish. But it's
like
not.
The walls, that's all airbrushed. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think the simple thing to say is that Tamiya paints aren't really designed to be brushed like that. They're more for airbrush. So I would say if you can, try a different paint like AK or Vallejo. I know Tony would swear, if he was here, he'd swear by Vallejo or Vallejo paints. He thins them down. You can get some good smooth surfaces with those. Jolly good. What's the next one? Okay, one from Phil East. What subject would you most like to see released as a model kit, and by what company? I would love to see G1 Transformer kits, preferably done by Bandai. Well, yeah.
Ooh, yes.
I'm not really into Transformers, but yes, I can see the merit of that. So let's do a round robin then. Ant, first of all, what subject would you like to see as a model kit, and by whom? I think we're all going to say Bandai because we all kind of like Bandai. Let's just be honest. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I've always wanted a Firefox from the Clint Eastwood film, and I know that some were made, and I've even got one, but it's a massive, great resin thing, so I'm not going to worry about that. So yeah, if I had a choice, I'd make Hasegawa or Tamiya or Bandai, someone Japanese, make 148. That'd be awesome.
That would be kind of sweet. I could go for that one. Firefox. God, you're bringing back the memories now.
Oh, it's such an awesome plane.
Yeah, you do realise that 99% of the audience of this podcast won't know what the hell Firefox is, but never mind.
Well, I'd be encouraged to go and look it up, and they'll go, wow, it's an amazing film. Clint Eastwood, who's he?
If you don't know what it is, go and just Google Firefox, Clint Eastwood, and watch the whole movie, because it's an awesome movie from the 80s. Yeah. Go on then, Adam. What would... that's a good choice. I like that one. What would you say, Adam? What would yours be? What would you like, and by whom?
I like the mechas from Pacific Rim. A lot of people didn't like the movie, but I love Gypsy Danger and the robots from those. And I'd love to see Bandai come out with that. I would also like to see, with Star Wars, you see a lot of the Y-Wings, the X-Wings, the TIE Fighters, the TIE Interceptors, all those. I would like to see a decent, large-scale B-Wing. That's just one of my favorite ones. And one of the older ones is, I was actually looking it up online, is a 1/42nd scale ATM snap fit. And when I was looking at the pictures, I just wasn't real thrilled with it.
Yeah, I think it's the old AMT one. There are a few out there. Star Wars kits of the resin variety. There's a few out there. I think Captain Cardboard did an X-Wing that was supposed to be taken from the original filming miniatures and things like that. And there's some others out there. And there's a big old B-Wing, but they're either really expensive or you're getting into a whole world of pain with resin. But yeah, B-Wing, I would agree with that. Cool. Tedward, what kind of subject would you like to see in model form, and by whom?
I'd like to see some large-scale modern British armour. Something like the Challenger tank. In a large scale, maybe with an interior, and and maybe even something. Probably it's not going to happen because it's all secret. But maybe a modern British submarine with an interior. Probably just that's because I'm on with that sort of thing at the moment. But yeah, certainly large scale, 1/16 scale or something. Challenger tank, something like that.
How about a 1/48 scale British nuclear submarine with optional rocky outcrop addition to put underneath it?
Yeah, that would be ideal.
For those who don't know, was it the Valiant or the Vengeance or the Ventriloquist or whatever it was?
I can't remember.
The first nuclear submarine that Britain made in like 30 years was launched, I think. 10 years.
I think it was Valiant.
Valiant.
I think it was Valiant. It launched, went straight across a channel, and beached itself on the other side of the beach. And then the tide went out, and everybody was stood around underneath looking at it.
Yes, that captain didn't have a very long captaincy of that submarine. Basically, the first nuclear submarine made in 30 years, and we killed it. Yeah. Okay, TK. What about you? What would you like to see made, and by whom?
I'm not sure really, because mostly I build airplanes and most of them are already out there. So, yeah, I'm trying to think of something, but just can't come up with anything.
It's actually not that easy of a question. Okay, well you continue.
I would like to have more Dutch types, because I would really want to build the Dutch Air Force history, and there's not much available for that in decals and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, because at the moment you have to get third-party decals, aren't you, for anything, or make your own? So.
Yeah, or make your own, because there aren't decals. So yeah.
No. Okie dokie. Will, what about you, my little frightless friend? What would you like to see made, and by whom?
Very much like Adam said, I like the Pacific Rim stuff. I think there is actually, I don't know if it's a kit or just pre-made thing, but I think there is one coming out or has come out. But I would love to see Bandai hurry up and bring out their Star Destroyer or AT-AT Walker in a decent scale, because that's one that they showed at their expo. I was like, whoa, the walking AT-AT was, yeah, they need to bring that out. So
yeah, I think most of us would agree with that one. I think even Ted would agree with that one.
A decent, affordable Star Destroyer kit would be from someone would be awesome. I know Ant's got one from Russia or something.
Yes, but the Zvezda one, who I know nothing about. So yeah, one of my followers is Russian, so I sort of said, would you mind? And he was very, very gracious enough to buy one and send it on for me. But Revell Germany are apparently reboxing it and probably doubling the price of it. But at least the instructions will be in English, and they might do a better job with the stand.
Did you see me visibly sag then when you mentioned Revell doing it?
Well,
mind you, if it's a Reeboks, I suppose we might get away with it.
Yeah, at the minute you can only buy it from Russia, so it's like the whole thing with the Bandai. So if you can find people in Russia willing to sell it, then great. At the minute it's a bit overpriced, but given time, when the demand goes down a bit, the prices should level off. But then it depends what Revell do with it, and whether Revell Germany is a worldwide release or whether it's just Europe or just Germany, for all I know.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing as well is that shopping online in Russian stores is not complicated, but having to run your virus check every time you go and buy something is probably a really bad thing.
Yeah.
For me,
I don't want a Russian bride.
No. I think for me, I don't really know. I would say I would love to make, and I know there are kits out there, but I would love to make a Space 1999 Eagle. Big, not little, a big one. I'd like to get a big kit of that, but the ones that are out there are like resin or vacuum form, and they're all weird mixed media, and I can't be doing with that. I want a simple plastic injection kit, but big.
There is one.
There's
round 2 releasing them.
I mean, good. Rather than round 2. They're a step forward from the old AMT toolings, but not the best. If something like Bandai or imagine somebody like Who made that? Who made the APC that I did? Who does the military vehicles? It's not TACOM. It's the other one. Trumpeter. That's it. Something like Trumpeter. Their attention to quality for glue kits did an Eagle, and because they put metal bits, or even Bandai. It's brilliant. Because I've always wanted to build an Eagle.
Puts out, it's just going to be like, yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, that's true. I should have just said Bandai to start with, shouldn't I suppose.
Excuse me for a minute, because something dissolved my shoe. So my floor is. I need to clean this up ASAP.
Oh, okay. Is that dog drool? It gets everywhere. I don't quite know what would dissolve your shoe. Excuse me.
Alien blood.
What has he been drinking? Okay, well that'll do. Let's have a look.
Good question, though.
Yeah, it was a very good question. Aaron Ford, what's the best way to do masking? I would say slowly and carefully. I'll go first and say there's no real good answer because it depends on what you're actually masking off. If you're just masking off coloured panels and things like that, then just masking tape. And I would say Tamiya masking tape. Or, if I can find it, because a lot of people complain at the cost of Tamiya masking tape. And it is very expensive. However, as a good alternative to Tamiya masking tape, go online and get yourself some MT Camoy paper known as washi. Do a little Google search for WASHI washi. I know Will Pattinson did a video on it, and that's kind of what made me get it.
I think we've all got one.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah, it's basically, it costs about 32 pence for all these rolls of tape. I've not got into them yet because I've not run out of Tamiya tape. But if you're using tape, you want to use low tack tape. So Tamiya tape or that stuff, it's very low tack, it's not got a lot of stick. If you just go and get some painters or decorators masking tape, put it on your model, rub it down, then pull it off, it's going to pull your paint off, or it might pull your paint off. So if you're using tape to mask off areas, use something like that, or the Tamiya tape to go around the edges, and then stick the decorator's tape around the edge onto the tape only. You can use masking fluids, especially if it's just a small area or a little recessed bit you want to fill, but they're hard to get crisp edges. So, and there are also some people like to use aluminium foil. Actually, you push the aluminium foil flat, rub it into the pattern on the surface, and then use a knife to trim around it. What else can you use? If you're doing paint chipping, you don't have to use chipping fluid or paint it on. You can use toothpaste. You can use, Busby was telling me the other day about somebody who used, what was it? It might have been peanut butter or something. Basically anything that will dissolve away in water, you can put it on in little paint chips and you can rub it off. But for tape masking, make sure you use a low tack tape like Tamiya or something like that. But that's not all the options. What about you guys? What would you recommend?
Post-it notes. I've heard people using those because they're low tech as well, and you can get you've only got one area that's sticky, obviously, but I've heard people using them and saying that they're as good as Tamiya tape.
Yeah,
well,
I imagine it might get a bit soggy with the paint on it though. But
well, I suppose if it depends. If you're doing something like you've got a flat panel and you want to paint a little line of shade there, like a panel line, you just want to quickly go to put a little bit of a shadow, and you can put the post-it on, spray it on, and pull it off again. Then for painting a panel, maybe not, but for just putting a shadow in or a shade line or something, that'd be brilliant.
Something like that, yeah.
It's no different to using. It's like fret paper, isn't it? You just put it down and spray over it.
Yeah. Or put two together if you want to paint a really thin line.
Yeah, put two together like that, so you can't just get a tiny line. And I know Ted has shown on some of his videos. Watch him wake up now. Ted has shown on some of his videos. Yeah, there goes his microphone. I know he's used for camouflage, which is always a trick. He's used blue tack, and you've used bits of tissue and everything, haven't you, Ted?
Yeah, I did that on the Challenger tank, the beginner's build, just to show you some easy ways to do it. Yeah, use some blue tack. You won't get a hard edge with it, as you would in ammunition tape or anything like that. It'll give you a thin a frosted edge,
like a soft edge.
Yeah, a soft edge. It'll give you that. And also another way that you can mask off is if any of you have seen my Hawker Typhoon build, you'll have seen where I used the post-it notes like Ant mentioned, but I used them like French curves. I cut around them, and I didn't actually stick it on to the model, but held it just above it, and then sprayed it. So it gives you like a template. It sprays over a template, and once again, it gives you a soft edge. That's if you're using an airbrush. If you're using a paintbrush, it doesn't quite work as well.
Ted broke the internet again.
Yeah, expensive is just back it up with some ordinary masking tape to fill the big areas.
Yeah, and that is an important point, whether you want a crisp edge or a soft edge. Masking tape's obviously going to give you a harsh edge, which is usually what you want. If you want to do a... Oh, go on.
Oh, just saying, I've got this stuff here, frisket film, which I'm guessing that might be the same as that fret tape you mentioned, but I got it for something else, but it's saying on the back that it's used for airbrushing, retouching, stencils, blah blah blah. So it must be low. Oh, it says on the front here low tax. So, and I haven't tried it on anything, but
yeah, that's basically the kind of stuff where it's a big piece of film, so you can cut shapes out.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
again,
it's a big like A4 sheet of paper.
Yeah, so you can cut out the shapes you want, and if you've got, say, a camouflage pattern, you can make a few little shapes and move them around the model.
Yeah, I've got a little tool here, if I can just put my hands on it, for cutting out, find it, for cutting out templates, excuse me, a bit of noise as I move some stuff.
There we go.
There we go. Little tool here for cutting out weird shapes for that film that you've got there. It's a... I can't describe it really.
Wait for it. There we go.
Cut circles and everything around it.
Is it basically the blades on a little pivot, isn't it? So you can move it around.
The blade's on a little ball bearing sort of fixture, and you just move it around and cut your templates out. That's if you want to get to that sort of extreme.
Yeah.
But if you're just on about masking, yeah, just Tamiya tape, just backed up with ordinary builder's masking tape.
Yeah. The only other thing to be aware of as well, because obviously Aaron doesn't say what he is actually masking, but the other thing that you're going to be masking at some point is clear parts, bane of every model maker's existence. If you're looking at masking a canopy on something like an X-wing or a fighter plane or something like that, and you're trying to make sure the frame is painted but the glass part isn't, you can either cover the whole canopy in one single piece of masking tape, push the edges in with a cocktail stick so it's flush to the frame, and then carefully may use a knife to go around and cut the window parts, and you can lift the frame parts off and have the window still masked. Or again, some people do that with metal foil. So there you go.
Yeah, the way I use I use very small diameter tape to go around the edges of the canopy.
Yep.
And then fill the rest in.
For those looking,
that's the curvy white tape.
Yep.
I've got mixed results with that, so.
Oh, yeah.
For anybody looking, that's also known as fine line or pin striping tape.
Yeah.
Use it in.
It's vinyl tape, isn't it? Or...
Yeah, it's 3M do a pinstripe. I think it's called fine line tape with 3M, and it's a very thin tape, but you can bend it round. So it's used for pinstriping on cars. If you want to put a stripe down or do flames, you use it so you can bend it round the shape of the flame. However, the only thing to be wary of with pinstriping tape is it can the 3M stuff. I've got some here somewhere. Where is it?
Well, this stuff is less tacky than the Tamiya tape. So.
Well, I've got some of this 3M pinstriping tape, and it's quite low tack. It's not particularly aggressive, but there's something in the glue that can eat paint, bizarrely, because it's used to being used on cars with lacquer clear coats and other lacquer paints on it. So do proceed with caution, but you can use it. Anybody else? For anybody else, Will? You're the one left that hasn't spoken properly yet. I don't mean spoken properly, I mean mentioned or discussed. I'll shut up.
I'm bad at masking anyway, so I just, when I have done it, use a Tamiya tape. And but I've always had trouble with, like you say, you put down a big piece and then, use the toothpick, cocktail stick, whatever, to get it in and then cut your shape out. I'm always been bad at that, so I try to avoid masking as much as I can anyway. But if I do, I use Tamiya, and yeah, I haven't had great results, but decent results with it. It's just probably more lack of practice than anything else.
I think we all probably sucked at it when we first tried it, and then excuse me,
So
as time went by, we got a bit less sucky.
Yeah, I try to avoid it as much as I can. So by doing that, I'm not getting any practice in it.
No.
But the stuff I'm doing, I don't really need to mask anything up. Like Bandai kits, you don't need to mask anything off. You just pull that pan off and paint it and stick it back on again.
Yeah, how much do we love that? How much do we love that?
Brilliant, yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, to be honest, Aaron, it's quite a long question because there's so many different ways of doing it and different reasons you want to do it that it's not easy to actually say here is how you do it. So I'd probably just say YouTube. All different methods, because there'll be if you're looking at masking a specific thing, if it's say you're looking at masking a canopy, have a look on YouTube for how to mask a canopy. I showed it on my Colonial Viper. I think you guys have shown it at various stages, some of you.
Yeah, there's also sorry to interrupt, there's also third-party masking kits for canopies.
Good point.
By Edward, for instance, and they want you to use a liquid masking fluid. Fluid's always liquid. But there's a hole in the center because the tape needs to bend, and you need to fill that in with either what's it called, mask hole by Umbro or something like that.
Toothpaste,
peanut butter.
I actually watched on tested.com, and I should say I'm actually wearing a Tested t-shirt today. On tested.com they had Frank Ippolito there, and he was showing Will and Norm how to paint something or other, and he was doing paint chipping by they were making a Fallout 4 bomb, and he was putting chipping on he painted it a metallic colour, then he put little dots of toothpaste all over it, then painted the base colour green, and then just got a damp cloth and wiped all the toothpaste off, and it was like, it worked.
Yeah, same thing with salt.
Yep, salt.
Yeah.
Yep, salt for chipping. I might actually try some salt chipping on the transit van. I've got to try and plan. I've actually got to do some planning for that and figure out. I've not actually started even building it yet, so I need to figure out what the hell I'm doing with it.
It's a decent result, but that would mean me rummaging around in my...
But I can't see you doing chipping with peanut butter though, Fox. I couldn't see any of it lasting to get on the model.
Actually, I don't actually like peanut butter. All the Americans have now turned off. Sorry, Adam, but I really don't like peanut butter. It just tastes like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
I don't mind peanuts, but peanut butter, I'd rather eat my own face. Ew. Right, so another one. Right, okay, here is a very long... We'll make this the last one because there's no way to answer this quickly. From Simon O'Callaghan. Oh, hang on, wait a minute. Just see if there's no one we can ask after that one. From Simon O'Callaghan, I've now just scrolled and it's gone. Oh, God. Sorry, Simon. What's the benefits of each type of paint? For example, what makes lacquer better than enamel, acrylic over lacquer, yada, 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 that kind of thing. I shall open this to you guys first.
Lacquer's harder wearing. It's a little bit harder to clean up, obviously cellulose thinners, things like that. Takes a little bit of time to dry. Over acrylics, where they're easy, don't smell, quick drying, easily available, lots of colours. Somebody else?
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say if you're just starting out, acrylics are the easiest ones to work with because they're mostly non-toxic and dry reasonably quickly. Lacquer paints, if you're using lacquer paints, you kind of want, if you're using an airbrush, you kind of want a respirator and a spray booth because they're horribly toxic. They do give incredibly good smooth finishes. That's one of their advantages. And they do give some of the best metallic finishes. However, the thinners you've got to use need to be cellulose thinners or lacquer thinners, which are again horribly toxic and smell really bad. I use the Mr. Metal colours, the Mr. Colour, Mr. Metal Colour, Mr. Gunze Sangye, I don't know what they're called, Mr. Metal colours, and they stank. And they are toxic. And if you use an airbrush, you have to have a solvent-safe airbrush. You can't put lacquers and solvents that you need for them through airbrushes. But they do give you the best possible finish. They will also potentially eat Bandai plastic alive, so make sure you prime, because they use hot solvents which will eat and dissolve most polystyrene-based products.
Usually I find a lot of the car builders will use cellulose paints because they get, as Fox says, a superb sort of finish, shiny finish.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that before, modern paint jobs on cars now are actually water-based paints, but going back 20, 30 years, they were all cellulose-based paints. As you will know, if anybody who works in the car industry has ever tried to put paint over a car without stripping all the paint off first, and they realise they've got an old car, and the modern water-based paints go horrible because they're on top of a cellulose paint and it goes wrong. Enamels. Do you want to paint with enamels? I don't know. I wouldn't personally. Weathering and stuff, yes, and detail painting, maybe. They take a long time to dry, 24 hours maybe, and they stink. Oil-based paints are best for weathering and details, but if you're painting figures, they can be great because you can blend colours. But again, they take a long time to dry. He does mention about acrylic over lacquer and so on. One thing I will say is you can put any kind of paint on top of a lacquer. You must never ever put lacquer on top of any other kind of paint, because if you put a lacquer on top of an acrylic or an enamel or an oil, it will eat that paint and reactivate it and ruin it. So if you put a lacquer coat down first, you can put anything on top of that and it's not going to harm the paint. But if you put anything down first other than the lacquer, don't then paint the lacquer on top. Anyone else? More details for Simon? There's not really a way to go into that without being really top level and glib about it. It's like a 3-hour podcast on its own, basically.
I used to paint all my models with animal paints because that's what I had back in the day.
Yeah, I think everybody's been there. Everybody's had the humbles.
Yeah, we all started off as a kid doing that.
Yeah. And they stink and they take a long time to dry, but they're pretty good for brush painting, I think.
Yeah,
I use enamels for a lot of dry brushing. Like, I know you use acrylic, Fox, but I tried using acrylic for dry brushing. I just can't do it. But using the unrolled enamels, brilliant for me.
Actually, I'll say I don't. The only acrylics I use for dry brushing are metallics, but other than that, I'd use oils. But yeah, enamels, I've not tried it yet, but I know enamels do take long to dry, so I have seen some quite good dry brushed enamels. Just to go back to TK's point, enamels do have finer pigments than acrylics, so yes, they can give you very fine, but they can sometimes be a pig to get them to self-level smoothly if you're brushing them on. Yeah. Which is why I was saying they're good for detail painting. If you're brushing them, you might not want to be painting big areas. Airbrushing isn't a problem.
No, you can easily paint larger areas with animals, but you need to thin it down just a little bit and do 2 or 3 layers.
Do it in thin layers.
Yeah.
The other thing to bear in mind with those as well is if you're airbrushing them, again, make sure your airbrush is solvent safe, because the mineral spirits you'll need to thin them might affect seals in a non-solvent safe airbrush. Might not, but it's worth just checking.
Wear a respirator.
Yep. Basically, acrylics. Now this is where it gets even more confusing, because when you're talking acrylics, you're not really talking about Tamiya paints, because Tamiya paints aren't actually really acrylics. They're actually lacquer paints, but they call them acrylics. They're not as harmful as other acrylics, as other, lacquer paints, but they are more harmful than acrylics. But ultimately, whatever paint you're spraying, wear a respirator. Did I just go around the whole houses there making that simple point? Have we just made this whole answer a complete train wreck? Does anybody else want to chime in on this one before all the passengers die, basically?
Just when you mentioned the lacquer over acrylics, because I've got a model MR2 car up there which I painted in a yellow acrylic paint. I can't remember which brand it was, and then unthinking, unbeknownst to me, I went and put a lacquer clear coat over the top of it, and like I say, it reactivated the paint underneath and started cracking up, and just had to fully strip it back and do it all over again, and this time used a lacquer paint and then a lacquer clear coat. So yeah, don't put lacquer over anything.
Yeah,
acrylic or whatever, just eats it.
There's always the slim chance that if the paint underneath is fully cured completely, then it may be all right. But it's the solvents in the lacquer paint that are hot chemical solvents that will basically reactivate or eat into any other kind of paint that's not a lacquer. So it's just not worth the risk. You might get away with it, but I saw a blog entry once, and it was a guy who built like a huge original series USS Enterprise. And he made it, and I think he bought it made. It was made about he made it and painted it in various paints, and then it was unfinished for about 5 years, and then he came back to it. He said, I'm going to go back to it, and he went back to it and realised it had been in storage for 5 years. The whole paint was just coming off and falling apart, and there were layers of paint peeling away, and it had just gone horribly wrong. What he'd done is he'd sprayed acrylics and then some lacquers on top, and then some more acrylics, and then some enamels, and he didn't know. So over the years, all these paints have just eaten into each other, and it just horribly gone wrong. So not good.
Well, with that thing that when I mentioned, I painted the color code and left it. It's probably a good week or even more before I went back with the clear coat, and then did there was a rattle can and did the thin coats and built it up. And even then, because saying like if it's fully cured and you do your thin coats and everything, it should be alright. But even then, it ate into it. So I think it's just it can work, but at the same time, it might not.
Yeah, it's kind of just like if you're spraying the lacquers on top, think of the lacquer paints as really just coloured lacquer thinners. So if you brushed some lacquer thinners onto acrylic paint, the acrylic paint will come off. But bizarrely, if you brush lacquer thinners onto fully cured lacquer paint, it probably won't come off that easily. It's really strange. But in the same way, I can put say thinners that I might use for enamel paints, say mineral spirits or not odorless turpentine type thinners, on top of fully cured acrylic paints, and it won't strip them off because it's not going to react with the acrylic. So cool. There's no real. I think the whole answer was probably the worst answer in the world, because probably none of it made sense even to us, and we know what we're talking about. So we just step away from that one slowly and just hope somebody comes and phones the police later with the body on the floor. Let's have a look. Let's do one more then. Cy Pattinson, hello Cy. There's only, I think, probably a couple of us that can answer this, but have you ever built any wooden models?
Nope.
Yes.
No. TK's never built any wooden models ever.
Nope. I'm denying its existence.
I haven't built any.
I've built a wooden MTB, motor torpedo boat, 1/35 scale.
From scratch?
Yeah, from scratch. It was a long time ago. It was built out of balsa wood. Just got the plans and a few sheets of balsa wood, but yeah, it was built out of wood. Easy enough to do, just like plastic, just that you need white PVA glue to put it together. Or super glue works brilliantly on balsa wood. Oh, I can see Will's got one there.
Will's about to show us his big thing.
It's obviously not finished. The same as the Deganasti, how you said, Falcon. This was Del Prado and his Build Bounty week by week thing, and it actually has interior detail as well. And that's really the only wood but I didn't know what I was doing, but it's not too bad really. But similar to what TK would have been doing, we like the whole plating is 2 layers of plating where each individual plank has got to be put on, and then there's another layer going over the top of it. And just doing all that it's a lot of work, but they can look really good when they're done, as TK has shown us now with his awesome Viking boat. And that's my experience with wood anyway. So.
Go on, show us your Drakkar, TK.
Yeah, this is a Drakkar. I made the mistake of starting off with a build that's labeled with 3 stars out of 3, difficulty-wise. So yeah, not my best plan ever, but I would build another one if it wouldn't take so long to build one.
That's the thing, they do take a long time to do, because as Ted mentioned, you're using most of the time PVA glue, which white glue, which takes quite a while to dry. I did end up using super glue on that as well though, but yeah, it's not the best thing to use on it, to be honest. But yeah, and it just it takes a long time.
We do have Adam there frantically waving something rather special around as well.
He's never worked with wood either. So.
He's got his microphone muted so he can wave it around as long as he wants.
There you go.
Yeah, speak to us, Adam. Get your thing on screen.
There you go. All wood. That's the infamous TARDIS.
Keep talking, dude. Tell us about it so we can keep watching it.
It's balsa wood. It's like you said. It's white Elmer's glue that I actually watered down my Elmer's glue a little bit, and it's weird. You water it down, you thin it out. It dries a little bit faster. When it's thicker, it takes longer. So that's one trick I've learned with this. But yeah, that's just white Elmer's glue, balsa wood, and lots of paint. So,
is there any tension on any of the parts? Like,
what?
You had to bend it, and the risk of
no, there's no bending on. Luckily, there's no bending. As far as like this, I had to I had to build up the center. I built a frame, and then I built up the center, and then I just like you build a house.
Yeah.
So
I know what TK's getting at, so yeah.
I think because if you water down the glue and you've got tension on a piece of wood that's bent and wants to go back to its natural state, the watered down glue may not work. It may just snap off eventually.
I think in the TARDIS though, it's all just straight cut pieces, isn't it? So I think you might get.
Cut.
Yeah.
I do have. Hold on, I do have another one.
But I know what you mean. You're mainly like, say I don't know, gluing the plank on the side of a boat that's curved like a Viking longship, for example. You need to make sure because you had to soak the pieces first, didn't you, to get them to conform to the shape.
Now that has some. Yeah, this has some bent pieces in it.
Yeah.
And that
I found a good.
Lots of clamps.
I found something that worked well with me when I was. Sorry.
No problem.
The first something that worked well with me when I was doing the bounty was because the inner layer of planking is slightly thicker. The outer one bends really easy because it's like less than a millimeter thick. But the inner one, you got to soak it and bend it to shape. And what I found worked really well for me to get it to keep the shape as I was soaking it for probably a day or so. And then I just used a soldering iron, and I just bent the wood and ran it along the soldering iron to dry the wood out, and that worked really well because the wood then kept the curve, and I could put it in place, and it didn't want to spring back out on me as the glue was drying. But with this one, I glued it, and there's little nails that you check in on the side as well. But it worked really well for drying the piece out in that curve. So that's a little tip there that you can use here.
Yeah, cool. I just soaked them and left them for overnight, so they dried out naturally. And then they kind of kept the curve, but it's with the Viking ship, it's a curve like this and a curve like that. So the wood's really
I had as well.
struggling.
When the same thing has got a curve two different ways, and like especially around the bow of the ship, and it's just
You guys are just talking dark magic about which I have no understanding whatsoever. Me and Ant are just sitting here going, I don't know what any of this means.
What's he talking about? Soaking with water? What?
I know, this whole carving things.
It just comes as like formed pieces. You just put them all together.
Yeah, surely you just push them all together and they all fit and they're all pre-coloured. No.
If it's Bando, you don't even need glue.
I know.
Water is what you use to clean up your airbrush if you're using certain paints. In case you don't know what water was.
Is water one of those things that comes in bottles and has the word beer written on it?
Yeah, there's some more in there.
Alrighty, let's do one more little question then. We'll get one more going. We've kind of covered this mostly at the start, just purely by fluke, but Paul Stewart says, primers, rattle can or airbrush, and how to get the best application without pooling or applying too much. Basically a tutorial on priming, he says. Now, we did cover a lot, so the only thing I can add is whether it's rattle can or airbrush in the long term works out cheaper because you use less. Rattle can primers are expensive. Rattle can primer, no different to putting rattle can paint. Press pan and release. Press the button, move it across the model, release it, and do it from, say, 20 or 30 centimetres. Build it up in a couple of light coats. Same with airbrushing. Just build it up in a couple of light coats. If it's the UMP or Steinal Res or the Ammo one-shot, you can actually just slap it on there. It's going to self-level quite nicely, but if you're not sure, my quality's suddenly dropped horrendously. Why has my quality dropped? If you're not sure at all, just go in a couple of misty coats, just build it up in light coats until you're happy you've got enough primer, basically. I'm going to adjust my settings, so this is going to appear on screen. It's really weird. Oh no, I don't know why. I'm having really rubbish quality for some reason. Anybody else on that one?
Yeah,
I think it was primer. Oh, everyone.
just apply it thinly, build it up, otherwise you'll blow all your detail away.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean,
I think something you could do is to if you can afford to get a some cheap kits that you don't mind testing with, and test out different primers to see which one is good for you. Because I mean, I use the Tamiya spray can, but I decant it all and spray it through the airbrush, and that's always worked well for me. But I wanted to go acrylic, so I was using the Vallejo stuff, and I've had good results with that. But now I'm wanting to try something else. So it's just, I think, yeah, if you can, try out different primers if you can do it, and just see what works best for you. And
Get some of those. They're €2.5.
little cheap kits like that. So something
Really
you
cheap.
don't mind practicing on you.
I
I've
buy
got
these
a,
to test out new stuff. Just 144 scale.
No, they're brilliant, man.
I've got a test pig that body from some toy, and I just use that when I'm testing out colours and stuff. I need to give it a clean off, but something like that even, and just just practice on that. So
you call it a test pig. I call them test mules.
I got the F16, which has all the colors in the world now.
Is that your test mule?
Yeah. It's my test falcon.
Yeah, but that sounds cool. That doesn't sound like something that's been so crap it's been relegated to the world of testing.
Foxx has got a test falcon.
We could all just yeah, shut up. Maybe we should just all call them Test Revel, because we know that just means it's crap.
It's a Revel kit, and actually I bought this to test stuff, and I think it's one of the first kits they did recessed panel lines. And it's actually a pretty good kit, detail-wise. So I fucked it up already.
Did you just say recessed panel lines and Revel in the same sentence? Because that's not actually legal.
No.
Or possible.
And it's a tiger meat with 10,000 decals. So
oh dear. One last one then. Let's do one more. What is your from Mark Lechen or Lechen? Sorry, Mark Lechon. What is your favourite chipping method? I would have said chipping fluid, but no, I actually quite enjoy just painting the chips on.
Depending on
Question about that. Does that not because you're painting the chipping on, does that not give it like a bit of texture? Because I've seen you doing it, and I've actually been meaning to ask you. But when you're painting the chips on, there's another layer of paint. Does that not add to the texture of that part?
If you slap it on all over the place, it does. But if you put a bit of thinner in there, and you're just doing really small chips, then if you're lucky, once you've done any other weathering on top and then your matte varnish on top of that, it's not going to have a noticeable texture. If you just slap it on normal with a big brush, then yes, it'll probably look like ass. So, but it can do. It's not the best way of doing it. It depends whether you want to do that kind of painting the chips on afterwards, or whether you want to do the paint the model the colour first and then put paint over the top and remove that paint to get the chips. Depends on what effect you want. But my favourite method is just painting it on because it's quite relaxing. But I know what you mean.
I want Ant to describe his chipping method I've seen in his videos.
Well, you can watch the video. That's what they're there for, dumbass.
That'll be obviously bashing kits on YouTube.
Go and watch Bashing Kits, and you'll learn all about Ant's chipping method.
Yeah. Probably not, or how it changes. But to be honest, I tried Mascol, and I was horrendous with it. It just looks like someone's put Mascol all over something. So then I started doing chips after the fact, and that's quite good. Doing the way Foxx does it, obviously not as good as he's done doing it. So I just like dremeling everything now, using my rotary tool, and it looks, I can get away with dremeling on this thing. So, well, I think I got away with it. You're probably going to take you didn't. But even on something this small, I in the video, it made me funny. It made me laugh watching my own video because this one goes, I might take the Dremel to it, but I probably won't because, you know, the scale. The next shot is me. But, yeah, so I actually bought some of this to try. What is it? Chipping medium from Vallejo. Because I wanted an alternative to hairspray. Because I quite like the hairspray. I used hairspray on Boba Fett. And I was able to get some good levels of like multi-level chipping, I mean. But I don't want to use hairspray. I want to try something else. So we'll give that a go next.
Cool.
So for
Ted,
your Dremel, you don't find you're burning through the paint and into the plastic a lot? I mean, you've obviously got to have quite a light touch with it.
Yes.
So,
Yes and yes. Because I kind of am getting through to the plastic in some places. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. But, I mean, it's like anything. The more practice you have, and even with like this, you just barely just kind of skipping along. But you've still got to keep control because if you let it dance along by itself, it goes everywhere and you probably make a pig's ear of it. But you can then go back in with a darker colour and add some kind of depth to the chips and they look even more realistic.
it does depend as well on what colour the actual kit plastic is.
Yes.
The original filming miniature for the Falcon, they actually used a rotary tool like a Dremel to make some of the paint chips, and if the plastic was, say, black, if you look on the filming miniature of the Falcon, some of the paint chips are black with like a white outline, and what they've done is they've painted the black plastic, because the plastic's actually black, they've painted over it in white, then they've chipped it with the Dremel, so you see a crispy bit of paint where there's no weathering. So you get the weathered panel, then you get a nice clean white outline where there's no weathering because it's inside, and then you get the black plastic underneath. So depending on the colour of the plastic, sometimes exposing the plastic is actually not a bad thing.
but that would be a good one because they're usually moulded in colour, yeah.
Well, apart from the Bandai X-Wings, because their red stripes are moulded in colour. So if you go through the paint on them, you go through to red plastic. So I had to, on that
true.
commission I just did, I had to go back in and sort of fill in the chips with white paint and a little bit of dark paint as well here and there. And
The one thing I'd say about Maskell is, because I share your thing with Maskell, is that when you put the Maskell on, it looks terrible. Unless it's a small scale model, which means it's a big model, like the land speeder I did, the paint chipping I did on that land speeder, which was about this big. It looked quite good because the Maskell gives you big chips, which is great. And what I tended to do was do a big chip with the Maskell to get the big main blob of a chip, and then with a toothpick go and put some little smaller dots of it around it. So you don't just end up with a blob of a chip, you get a blob with a few little orbital chips out, and it just breaks it up a little bit. But yeah, Maskell can be quite hard to not do massive paint chips. So small tiny things, not that great. But for small scale models where it's a big massive model, like I wouldn't do it on the Yamato because it's, you know, a person's that big. But if a figure is this big in a model kit, then it's a big model and you can get away with that. Always use my ethic. The paint chip is rarely bigger than your hand.
Unless they're joined together.
Yeah, shut up.
I'm going to be doing a Slave 1 in the near future, so I've really got to sort out how I'm going to approach that because that's just one big chipping nightmare.
I mean, that...
Oh, yeah.
What scale? Is that the 1/48th?
1/144 again.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
That one, that's difficult because it's not just like a blob and a blob and a blob. It's kind of all linked, and if you just do it with chipping fluid, you've got no control over where the chips are.
And
But if you do it with, if you do it with Maskell, you could do it with Maskell and just use a toothpick and build it
Well,
up.
I'm hoping hairspray or chipping medium technique might be the way to go because I want the control to take off and hopefully it'll look more natural that
Yeah,
way.
I mean that will give you a lot of finer chips and a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, it won't control. You can't control exactly where the chips are, but yeah, that'd be fine.
Well,
No,
that's why
people
you
can see
take the
that,
paint
but-
off.
Yeah, that's the Slave one there. That's what you're talking about for the chipping, yeah.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. Do bear in mind as well that ILM a lot of times would also sand the piece once it's painted to get some edges showing. So I did that on
Looking at the
on that.
chipping on this, it does look like it's more of a sanded sort of detail rather than a chipped off thing. Yeah, like it's been rough.
Well, are those the pictures of the model made by Bandai though? That's not the studio
Yeah, that's.
model, is it? That's artwork.
I don't know. It's
from-
not the Bandai box, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's the kit. It's the made kit by someone, but it's it's like done. It's it's attainable by the mass public.
Yeah. But there'll be shots of the studio model out there. It's just wondering.
Yes.
It's trying to figure out how if you want. Depends if you want to make something that matches the studio model or something that is a ship of the imagination. That may be more
Well, it
realistic.
depends. If it's commission, it's going to be a studio model. If it's for me, then it's probably going to be studio accurate as well.
Yeah. How about you, Tedward? What's your preferred chipping method?
Well, if you watch the tank
On SkipperTed on YouTube.
on SkipperTed on YouTube, you'll see that I used quite a number of different chipping techniques. One of them I used AK heavy chipping fluid. I know that, like Ant has mentioned, using hairspray, but I find this has a bit more control over it. Sometimes hairspray, probably depending on how cheap you want to buy your hairspray, whether it works or not. But I use this in conjunction with post chipping as well, where I went along all the top of the commander's cupola and did some post chipping. But I would recommend anybody that's going to do any chipping on anything, whether it be Star Wars or it be a Second World War tank, get yourself along to your local building site and have a look at some of the actual vehicles that are out there and see where it chips, see where it works, because there'll be some areas that get hammered and there'll be no paint left, and there'll be other parts of the vehicle that look almost new. So it's just a matter of sort of trying to recreate what's out there. As Fox says, don't make your chips too big. Nothing's bigger than a hand, but there's lots of hands joined together, so you get a huge chip. That's about it, really.
Yeah, I will agree, actually. Going to a building site, when I started learning how to do weathering, I realised that when I'm in a car going down the motorway or down a road, I cannot stop looking at like dirty trucks, dirty cars, builders' wagons, cement trucks, everything. And to the point where I was stood outside work one day and this van pulls up next to me, and I'm there going, and I looked at this, like there's some streaking down the back on the back of the shutter door, and one of the streaks was straight from a little rubber like nozzle, and one of the streaks kind of went at an angle, and I'm like, oh, that's a rubbish paint job. and then I thought, well, hang on, no, because that's real. So next time I screw up a streak on a vehicle, I can say, well, I've seen that in real life. So yeah, do spend time looking around the real world, like Ted says, construction sites. Just when you're out and about, look at things and how they weather.
One of the best places I saw for weathering grime and dirt and things like that I know we're going away from chipping is the railway station. Have a look at some of these trains that are hauling cement trucks and things like that, and how dirty they are and where the muck hangs out. But yeah, that's weathering. But yeah, we're talking about chipping, I know.
Yes, we don't want to know about other muck that hangs out. Where other muck hangs out, Ted, that's for the after hours, that one. It's a different kind of muck. How about you, Adam? What's your preferred chipolata method? Are you with us, Adam?
Yeah.
Oh, what's your favourite?
I use hairspray, but I've also, something that I've been experimenting with and I've had good success with, is multiple rounds of dry brushing. Very light dry brushing. And the thing to remember when you're chipping is it's not usually two-tone. It's not bare metal and paint. You got primer in there too. So you might have 2 or 3 colors that you need to chip or you need to put in there. So you might have bare metal, you might have rust stain, you might have primer, you might have the paint. So, and that's just what always is going through my head is what am I trying to get the effect of? And I've really enjoyed just doing light dry brushes. Now, my question is, has anybody tried basically like using a toothbrush or a spackle brush where you just use your thumb and basically take your paint, put it on a toothbrush and go like this to get that?
I've tried it. I've tried it for mud splats. I've not tried it for chipping. I found it very hard to control exactly where it's going.
Yeah, likewise. I think it's all right for mud splats, but not for chipping.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've kind of veered onto the brush painting chipping at the moment. It's just because I can control it so well. I can really, and when I control it so well, I mean put too much on, because you might see an undue style, and we won't talk about that one. That went wrong. How about you, TK? What about you with your chipping? Have we gone through you yet?
No, I use various methods. I sponge sometimes, like an old scouring sponge, and the brush, paint them on. And I've tried the AK stuff as well. I'm kind of happy with that stuff as well. I usually mix my methods when I would do the chipping. So.
Will, what about you, dude? What are you? You're getting into the
I
weathering
haven't
soon,
done
aren't you?
any yet.
Yay!
No, I got to learn all this stuff. I haven't done any chipping at all, so yeah, I got to try everyone's methods.
So you can be our token idiot abroad kind of character.
Yes, it's like, don't do this. It didn't work. It turned out horribly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to use that snow speeder as a start off weathering. I don't know if I'm going to do any chipping on it, but yeah, I've got to do it at some stage. So yeah, I'll be asking all you like, how do I do this?
Yeah, it's all for you to learn.
FaceTime me. I don't know how to do this.
It's all for you to learn, dude. Right, we're coming up on 2 hours now, so that's a heck of a long podcast. I think we should call it quits, because we're probably all down for a wee and a cigarette anyway. Those of us who obviously wee and cigarette. So I think we'll call it quits there. Thank you to you guys for coming along this time again. We seem to have, again, say Tony did have to bugger off, but we've had a full house. Ant, thank you very much for coming by.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's all right. And of course, you can see his stuff on Bashing Kits on the YouTubes. There would be a banner there, but thanks, Google.
Thanks, Trump.
Yeah, thanks, Trump. God damn it. That doesn't sound as good now. Can I still say thanks, Obama, just because it's more comedy? Like 3 years from now.
That's the point. Yeah.
Still blame it on Obama 3 years from now. It'll still be funny. Adam from Enigma Model Making on YouTube as Enigma Model Making. Thank you as ever for coming up and brightening our day.
Always.
Thank you very much, Tedward. You little industrious man there, from SkipperTed on the YouTubes.
All the tubes.
All the tubes. SkipperTed.
I don't mind if anybody wants to come along and subscribe. They're more than welcome. And you never know, if you subscribe within the next 24 hours, you could be in with winning a private island in the Bahamas. Might.
Star. Not going to happen.
Complaints can be made to Helgon35.
Yeah, any complaints to helgon35@geocities.com. I really hope somebody out there doesn't have helgon35@geocities.com as an email address, because they won't know what the hell's going on. TK from TK's Models. It is TK's Models on YouTube, isn't it?
No, it's not. Yeah, it is
No.
when you search for it. But look at there. I'm on 88 of 100 subscribers for my custom link. So subscribe. Help me out there.
So we need at least 22 people. Obviously, we need more than 22, but
Well, 12.
yeah,
12.
12. Hey, I never said I did maths.
Math.
Well, all the people in the world, please subscribe to my channel.
If you want 12, I can give you 12, but I'd rather you have at least 22, because that's more.
Yeah.
But he is.
I don't care.
You can find him on YouTube as TK's Models.
Yeah, you need to search for it. When I hit 100 subscribers, I can do a custom link, so it will all be easier.
Yes. Well,
You need to start building a Falcon and then start doing videos on it and just put it away and never go back to it. And that way you get like 1,000 subscribers.
Do you
I can't think of anyone that's done that, but
do you see this face? Do you see this face? I can't do a stern face because the camera goes away from me. That's rubbish. Google, sort it out. I need to be able to do a stern face.
Tap your desk while you're doing it.
I'm also trying to think of a Toby Ziegler quote that will be hilarious right now, but it's just not going to happen. And last of all, our good old flightless friend Models by Will. Will from Models by Will on YouTube as. Have you got your custom link yet?
yes, I've got 122 subscribers. Yay! Thank you, everyone.
So it's Models by Will.
So yeah, I got the custom link. So I even figured out how to do that without having to ask it.
Wow.
So, no.
Do you mean you asked the missus?
Yeah. Ask someone at work. Like, how do you do this? Yeah. But no, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no pleasure. thank you to all of you for coming along. As always, obviously, you know me, I'm Foxx from Model Making Guru. On the YouTube is Model Making Guru, Twitter and Facebook, you guessed it's Model Making Guru. Do go along to these guys. It's the wrong side, I never know the right side. Do go along to all these guys' channels and subscribe to them, because we don't all do the same stuff. You know, I do my Gunpla, Will does his Star Wars, TK builds weird wooden Viking ships and planes with scary numbers of parts that confuse most people. Ted's got his 500-foot long U-boat with 328 life-size figures in it that he will come to regret at some point, but not yet. Adam's still building his TARDIS, and there's other things in the works that I know about that you don't, but I know about them. And of course, Ant with more Star Wars models. More, yeah, but you can't go wrong there, can you? Can't go wrong. And I am slowly converting all these guys to Gunpla, apart from Will, who's already making hundreds of Gunpla anyway. Yeah, we'll get we'll make it. Yeah, Will knows about Gunpla. He's got more than me in shelves. Oh, I've sold some of mine, so anyway.
I'm very good at buying them, just not very good at making them.
Yeah, why don't you buy them and send them to me for free, and then that'd be sweet.
I'll tell you what, you send me your Yamato and I'll...
I'm trying to do that face again, and it won't cut to. You got a bit of it. Hoorah! Strike. So you got the strike. Is it freedom? Sorry, not strike.
It's freedom.
Freedom. Look at the fin. Look at the V fin on that.
They're all painted up.
It's looking awesome. So the difficulty with this hangout is every time somebody shows something, we'll want to go, oh yes, that's brilliant, but as soon as we do, the camera cuts away. Thanks, Obama. But thank you to you guys for coming along as always. Thank you to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. As always, it's really, really appreciated. While these guys all make loads of noise and keep the camera away from me. God damn you all. Shut up. See what I have to deal with. There will be more of these. Stay tuned. Remember, this is the first half of the podcast. This is the open to everybody one. We'll go off and have a wee and a cigarette and something to drink, and then we'll start recording the After Hours podcast, which is the adults only, Patreon exclusive, drinking, smoking and falling over, TK, version of the podcast, which you'll find out about in the next bit if you go and watch it. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, do go along and watch that. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, go along to patreon.com/modelmakingguru, become a patron, and then you can watch the After Hours, which usually gets quite... I don't know, is the word funny or embarrassing? I'm not quite sure. One of the two. We don't talk about models, but we talk about... There's a lot more editing I need to do on that podcast, trust me. But yeah, stay tuned for more of these. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you had a good Christmas. Hope you had a good New Year. And as always, I'm doing the raising of the hat thing. Adios, amoebas.